and welcome to Inside Out Southwest, stories and investigations from where you live.
Go.
Tonight, a search for heroes, finding the last resting place of the makeshift minesweepers.
This is the last piece of the World War I wrecks that have not been found in Falmouth. It's just nice to have that complete.
I'm Gemma Woodman and this is Inside Out Southwest.
In a quiet backwater on the Fal Estuary, a team of divers is preparing to investigate a mystery, one that's puzzled historians since the First World War. They're trying to find the last resting place of 11 men who died protecting this stretch of coast. They weren't soldiers or full-time sailors, but fishermen.
This is the little-known story of the British trawlermen who, during the First World War, became minesweepers. They were a band of men who would pay a huge price for their bravery.
Just as it is today, in 1914, Falmouth was a vital deep-water port in a strategic position for ships navigating Atlantic trade routes. To challenge Britain's superior naval power, the Germans produced thousands of U-boats. They were effective as torpedo boats, but even more deadly as mine layers, leaving highly explosive charges in British shipping lanes. Britain responded by pressing more than 400 trawlers into service as makeshift minesweepers. They were small, manoeuvrable, and their crews knew local waters. But this was a new type of warfare. There was no handbook or training.
Where they knew there was a minefield, you would send out these ships in pairs with effectively ropes strung between them with knots along the length of the rope. And the idea was that this would then catch the mooring of the mine. And once you know you've snagged something in it, the ships would steer in parallel in a zigzag, thus forcing the mine cable between two knots until eventually it would be severed and it could be destroyed by rifle fire generally. For trawlermen, life would have been extremely tense. They really were in imminent danger at any point, and never knowing where that would come from leads to a huge build-up of tension. They have an extremely high mortality rate, so you've got nearly a 19% chance of dying doing this work, which is higher than if you're frontline infantry.
In December 1916, a Cornish trawler, the St Ives, hit a mine and sank in Falmouth Bay. All 11 crew, local trawlermen and naval reservists, were lost. One name is remembered at Kimberley Park's War Memorial in Falmouth, but the wreck of the vessel has never been found. Diver Mark Milburn and historian Dave Gibbons are now on a mission to find it, starting with the original telegram that reported the loss.
And in it, he states quite clearly that it was blown up by a mine 2 miles west-southwest of St Anthony. So we scaled off 2 miles, that's southwest, west-southwest is approximately there. So we're somewhere off of Mainport, off of Pennant's Point. Now, I've dived this area extensively in the past. I've also dived it looking for the St Ives, and I've not found any information, I've not found any parts, any pieces that are relevant.
They've also obtained a copy of the official War Office report of the sinking, and this gives the location not as west-southwest, but as south-southwest of St Anthony. Only one letter different, but more than a mile from the site where divers have been searching for nearly a century. Could it be that a simple typing error has sent generations of divers to the wrong place?
And what would you expect to see of the St Ives?
Well, the main thing probably would be boiler parts.
Which is going to be a small,
boilers and parts, it's going to be a small boiler.
Yeah.
Small plates with lots of holes in it. If it's intact, it's probably only going to be 5-6 foot long, maybe 4 foot diameter.
Yeah.
If the team's theory is correct, there's a challenge in store. There's already a known and significant wreck at this newly identified site. In 1940, an oil carrier, the Caroni River, hit a mine in Falmouth Bay. After partially sinking, she was still a hazard to shipping and had to be blown up by the Royal Navy. It could be that the Caroni River sank directly on top of the St Ives, and the divers will have to search for clues underneath this massive wreck. Or the explosion to sink her may have mangled both ships together.
What we do is we accrue ever more convincing evidence from the artifacts, from features such as the size of the boiler, which would be typical of this type of ship, of the sort of small trawler we're looking at, to the way that it was constructed. If we can find plating, whether it was welded or riveted, to potentially finding brass objects that might have manufacturers' names on, something that would distinguish it from the wreck that we think folded over it during the Second World War, and we're moderately confident we can do that.
It's important to me because it's a lost wreck in Falmouth. We have 11 people died. They're in service to their country during World War I. It's 100 years ago. But this is not an old wreck. This is almost like the last piece of the World War I wrecks that have not been found in Falmouth. And it's just nice to have that complete.
Convinced that the two ships have sunk on the same site, the team heads out to Falmouth Bay.
We're in the middle of the wreckage now, because obviously it's spread out over a long area. I just want to go to the most northerly part.
Can wreckage from the St Ives be found among the remains of the Caroni River, a ship nearly 4 times its size? The divers soon find the wreck of the Caroni River. The site is more than 100 metres across, the twisted metal evidence of the huge explosion that sent her to the seabed. Decades of tides, corrosion, silts and marine life have taken their toll on the site. It's going to be hard to distinguish the wreckage from 2 different ships. And midway through their dive, Mark and the team encounter another problem. Over the years, hundreds of metres of trawler nets have snagged on the wreck. The site is covered in tons of netting. Cutting it away so the divers can see what's beneath could take weeks. Frustrated, the divers return to the surface. They've only searched a small area of the wreck site, but they're optimistic, convinced the wreckage of the St Ives is down there somewhere.
It could be under the net, it could be anywhere. This is a massive ship. At 7,800 tonnes, it's 139 metres long. Yeah, it's a massive thing. It's there somewhere. It's just exactly pinpointing it we weren't able to do today.
It's late summer, and the divers are once again heading out into Falmouth Bay. Another dive team has told Mark about a separate section of wreck, south of the main area they've been diving so far. Satellite navigation takes the team straight to the spot.
We've covered that bit so well now, I'm thinking that it's got to be in this piece.
Finding this separate section of the Caroni River should be easy. Finding the wreck of the much smaller St Ives will be much harder.
Two, one, go.
Mark's years of experience of wreck hunting suggest that the ship's boilers often provide the clue. The St Ives would have been powered by a small coal-powered steam boiler. The Caroni River, an oil carrier, would have had diesel engines. And just minutes into the dive, Mark finds what he's been looking for. The distinctive end plates of exactly the type of steam boiler that would have powered the St Ives. The holes in these distinctive perforated slabs of steel would have held the rods that heated the water to make steam. This wreckage could never have been from the Caroni River. Mark's convinced that this is the last resting place of the St Ives and her crew.
Good to see it, yes. I'm so glad we found it at last. It's taken a while to find it. It's such a big area to search. It's just nice to actually find it at last.
Among the wreckage, Mark's even found coal that might have fuelled the steam boiler.
This is coal. It's right next to where the boiler was.
They'll visit the wreck one more time to pay their last respects to the 11 who died in a bloody but forgotten chapter of the First World War.
It's just nice to have found it at last. It could have taken forever. And I mean, we still haven't seen the whole wreck. So I'm very happy that we found it, and I'm convinced that it is the St Ives.
And that's all from us for this week, but join us again next week when we revisit some of our best stories of 2018. I'll see you then.
In fact, Inside Out will be back in 2 weeks' time.